Echoes of the Forgotten Genome. I remember the day like it was yesterday. The boardroom was silent, the air thick with tension. I stood there, my voice echoing off the cold, sterile walls, exposing the illegal gene patent theft that my biotech firm had been perpetrating. The looks on their faces, shock, betrayal, anger, were etched into my memory, but none of that compared to the devastation I felt when I was blacklisted from the industry. Overnight, I became a pariah, a traitor, a fool. My family was no different. They called me reckless, naive, and embarrassment. "You'll never amount to anything," my father had said, his voice dripping with disappointment. "You've thrown away your career for some misguided sense of justice." My mother, usually my staunchest supporter, shook her head in disbelief. "We told you this would happen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why couldn't you just listen to us?" But I couldn't let it go. The betrayal, the injustice, the sheer hypocrisy of it all, it fueled me. I was determined to prove them wrong, to show that ethical biohacking could make a difference. So I left. I abandoned the past, the expectations, the ridicule, and set out on a journey to pioneer open-source genetic therapies. The early days were brutal. I was dismissed as a reckless activist, a dreamer with no practical skills. Corporate giants laughed at my efforts, calling my work a waste of time and resources, but I didn't care. I was driven by a passion that burned brighter than any setback. I worked tirelessly, often alone, in a small lab I could barely afford. I faced countless challenges, funding shortages, technical hurdles, and the constant threat of legal action. But I pushed forward, fueled by the memory of their derision and the belief that I could make a difference. Years passed, and my work began to gain traction. My open-source gene therapies started to show real, tangible results. I developed treatments for rare genetic disorders, therapies that could be accessed by anyone, anywhere, without the exorbitant costs imposed by corporate giants. I transformed barren lands into thriving ecosystems, using my therapies to revitalize the environment and improve the lives of those who lived there. Slowly but surely, I was proving my worth. And then, one day, I decided it was time to go home. I arrived at my family's house, my heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't seen them in years and I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was ready. Ready to face the consequences of their past derision, ready to show them what I had become. As I stood on their doorstep, I could hear the familiar sounds of my childhood, laughter, the clinking of dishes, the hum of the television. I took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened and there stood my mother, her eyes wide with surprise. "Lily," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "is that really you?" I nodded, a small smile playing on my lips. "It's me, Mom." She stepped aside, allowing me to enter. The house was just as I remembered it, filled with the comforting sense of home. But as I walked into the living room, I saw the looks on their faces: shock, disbelief, a hint of fear. They had expected a failure, a washed-up idealist, but what they saw was a woman who had achieved the impossible. I spent the next few hours sharing my story, showing them the impact of my work. I told them about the lives I had touched, the ecosystems I had revitalized, the revolution I had sparked in accessible healthcare. I showed them the awards, the accolades, the letters of gratitude from people whose lives had been changed by my therapies. And as I spoke, I saw the realization dawn on their faces. They had been wrong, so very wrong. They had dismissed me as a fool, a dreamer, a waste of potential, but I had proven them wrong. I had turned my back on their expectations and forged my own path, and I had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. The atmosphere in the room was heavy with emotion. My father, usually so stern and unyielding, looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Lily," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "I'm so sorry, I was wrong. You were right all along." I reached out and took his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "It's okay, Dad," I said. "I understand, but I needed to do this. I needed to prove that I could make a difference." And as I looked around the room at the faces of the people who had once dismissed me, I felt a sense of peace. I had faced their derision, their disbelief, their betrayal, and I had triumphed. I had turned their words into fuel, their doubt into determination, and their betrayal into a beacon of hope. I left my family's house that day with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit unbroken. I had faced the consequences of their past derision, and I had emerged victorious. I had proven that ethical biohacking could make a difference, that open-source genetic therapies could revolutionize healthcare, and that the dreams we deem ridiculous can often be the most powerful forces for change. And as I walked away, I knew that I had not only transformed the lives of others, but had also transformed myself. I had become a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience, and a testament to the power of belief. And that, I realized, was the greatest triumph of all.